Hello, and welcome to today's discussion, the Tech Day of Pink 2020, a breast cancer awareness program hosted by Wipro, the Estee Lauder companies, and the Silicon Valley organization. We're here today to discuss a topic that is super relevant and critical today for all, breast cancer. Every second, somewhere in the world, a woman is diagnosed with breast cancer, and although rare, it affects men too. Awareness and early detection is critical. But before we get to the discussion and introduce our speakers, I'd like to welcome in a woman who has been brave to share her experience of surviving breast cancer for the first time to the world. Ishita Sengupta is a young woman. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 35. Ishita, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Gail, for having me here. And it's great to be a part of this campaign and be able to share my story. I was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 35. It was, in early 2016 that I noticed a lump. Honestly, I didn't worry much about it because, I thought that, I was too young to have breast cancer. Nonetheless, I got it checked and it was ruled out to be as benign. I moved back to my normal life. But after a month of, turning 35, I realized that that lump has kind of stayed on and it has, grown bigger. I met with an oncologist. We got a biopsy and a mammogram done. The report came out to be as positive. In July 2016, I was diagnosed with second stage triple positive breast cancer. I had 6 rounds of chemo, followed by another 12 rounds of Herceptin and, a surgery in between. Dealing with cancer is, not just about the physical aspects. There's a huge emotional, side to it as well. First of all, it catches you mostly unaware. Then there is that one question of one me that, why me, that keeps haunting you a lot of times. The impact of the treatment is such that, you become so weak and frail that regular chores, seem so difficult. You look different because you lose hair and your eyelashes. Your vitals go down to a point that, you need injections after each session. For me, what got me going was a very supportive ecosystem all around. A husband who stood rock solid and helped me, through this entire process of physical and emotional trauma. My parents and my in-laws travel cities, to be with me all the time. An extremely supportive set of colleagues and team, who offered all possible help so that I could continue working at my own pace and still be relevant and still be, involved in all of the activities. It's been, the whole process lasted more than a year. And it's been about, 3 years now that I'm in remission. The whole process was, a roller coaster ride, to say the least. But, during this whole journey, I discovered an entirely new side to myself. That will and the determination to fight and conquer the unknown, that courage and that fearlessness, that keeps me going to date. Breast cancer, in a lot of women is diagnosed through self-checks. It is so important to be aware and to be, vigilant of any differences or any abnormalities. And if you do notice one, please do get it checked. I know in the current scenario, all our focus is on COVID and, our regular checkups and, visits to the hospitals and clinics are getting delayed. But I would say that, if you do have a mammogram scheduled or a health checkup planned, do not ignore it. Please do go for it. Early detection is key here. And if caught early, it definitely is treatable. For me, this has been a second lease to my life. I'm enjoying every bit of it. Medications and regular checkups are a part of it, but that's certainly manageable. A supportive family ecosystem, an empathetic employer, state-of-the-art medical care, health insurance, having one or a lack of it, are probably, the deal breakers in it. And it really, takes you through this entire journey of discovery to treatment to recovery. And I hope that in today's discussion, we will be touching upon these points. Awareness is so important. And I just hope that, we are aware and, we take good care of ourselves. Thank you. Over to you, Gail.
Ishita, thank you for that heartwarming story. I can't even imagine telling the story. I'm so grateful that you had the opportunity to be detected and treated in your life, and sharing this, and hopefully others will have the same opportunity to also have a long life to live. And so with that, though, I wanted to now just switch tracks a little bit to first and foremost thank and shine a really very bright light on Estee Lauder's initiative and partnership with Wipro for sponsoring this Tech Day of Pink. And I would like to, with that, introduce our esteemed panelists. First and foremost is Michael Smith, who is the Chief Information Officer of Estee Lauder's companies. We also have a Dr. Laura Esserman, who is a physician and MBA director of the Carol Frank Buck Breast Cancer Center for University of California, San Francisco. Shauna Emerson O'Neill, VP, and she's a Vendor Management Strategy and Delivery Innovations and Technology and Shared Services for TD. And so I'm going to actually make this actually more of an opportunity for us to not only share what the initiatives are, and I'll first start with that, and then I would like to then go to Mike and have him talk more about what things Estee Lauder has done. So Estee Lauder's company's breast cancer campaign started in 1992 by Evelyn Estee Lauder, and it was inspired by a movement. And in 2017, Mike Smith, who's the Chief Information Officer, founded this Tech Day of Pink initiative, which is dedicated to mobilizing the global community and to unite technologists and IT professionals worldwide around breast cancer awareness, education, and fundraising. Wipro joins Estee Lauder companies in the mission to create a breast cancer-free world. In 2019, Wipro had organized an awareness campaign for its 175,000 employees in 59 countries, 35% of which are women. Their subsidized mammograms offered to employees and in campus health camps were widely appreciated. This year looks different because of COVID, and Wipro has kicked off a teleconsultations hotline, live webinars with oncologists, besides an active social media awareness campaign. And so with that, I would like to now turn the mic over to Mike.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here and for shining a spotlight on this very important cause of awareness around breast cancer that, the Estee Lauder breast cancer campaign, as you mentioned, was founded by Mrs. Estee Lauder in 1992, and she co-created what has now become a very iconic pink ribbon. And the breast cancer campaign has raised over $89 million in that time period. We support global research, medical services, and education through over 60 organizations worldwide. The Breast Cancer Research Foundation is our largest, with over $70 million going there, funding over 290 medical research grants. And so we see the progress that research is making. And, this is such an important issue for all of us. It touches every one of us. There's hardly a person that doesn't know someone that's been impacted. And, the lifetime risk for breast cancer is about 1 in 1,000. So it's a pretty high number. And even for men, 1 in every 833 men will develop breast cancer.
So tell me about some of the initiatives that you're supporting now. I understand that you have a number of campaigns, and one in particular is the hackathon. Could you give us some information about that and how one can participate and what the intent of it is?
Absolutely. The Tech Day of Pink, which was started, as you mentioned, in 2017, I was only in my role for a couple of months when I learned about the Estee Lauder breast cancer campaign. And I had actually just lost someone very close to me, and the campaign was something that really stuck out for me personally. And so I said, what can I do as a functional leader, as a head of technology? And so we started the Tech Day of Pink internally originally, which was asking people to wear pink, to post something reflecting on what this meant to them, and maybe honor somebody that they had lost or somebody they knew that was fighting the battle, and post it and put the hashtag at that time, Tech in Pink 2017. And I was going to donate per post. So I felt like that was an opportunity. As it turned out, when I went to go scroll through the post to find out how many people had posted and how many hashtags were out there, I started to see from other companies and colleagues that I'd worked with in the past that they had actually joined in. And that's when it struck me, we can actually rally the entire technology community. And so in 2018, we opened it up externally. And the response was amazing. Other CIOs and tech company executives have also volunteered to donate per hashtag. So every time somebody posts, it raises funds. And then last year, we were in dialogue, and somebody mentioned the fact, since we're rallying the tech community, why do we not do what technologists do best? Not just raise awareness, not just educate, not just raise funds, but actually try to bring to bear technology solutions that will advance the fight against breast cancer. And so we launched the hackathon this year, and it's coming to a culmination right now. But we had over 800 people from around the world working to find creative solutions and who knows, this may be the one thing that it becomes the tipping point that makes the difference, that is the game changer. We believe that there's a huge opportunity for technologists to continue to give. You don't need a hackathon like this. Lend your skills to nonprofit organizations, to hospitals, to medical research. There's just an amazing amount that we as technologists can do.
Thank you. I really much appreciate it. So if you had a challenge to some of the multinational companies who've not yet come on board, what would be the challenge and learnings that you've had from Estee Lauder's, and now a good couple of decades have actually championed the culture? What would you say to them?
For the companies that have not come on board?
Not there yet. They're not there. They're right.
Yeah. I think that the employees, people, we all crave purpose, and I think we all crave the desire to do good. And I think when companies are looking at opportunities like this, it's beyond any commitment to community and values that they have for the communities they live and work in, and doing social good. There is, I believe, an upside for rallying your employee base and getting involved in that. It's an incredible team building opportunity. It provides joy at work, the opportunity to know that you're doing something and that makes a difference. And I fundamentally believe that there's a direct correlation between that opportunity to give back to your communities and to be able to do something and high performance in the organization. And this
That's
is just
wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mike. That's wonderful. And so we had mentioned the thanks to Estee Lauder and the millions of dollars that you helped bring in for research. I would like to actually now turn the conversation to Dr. Asseman and hear more about, so in light of what's going on with the COVID pandemic and how that's affected both screening and detection. So Dr. Asseman?
Yeah, thanks so much. Such a pleasure to be here. And thank you all for doing this and for shining a bright light on this. I want to just preface this with just a few comments. And that is, one in every 1,000 women in their 40s will have found a cancer. And over a lifetime, it's 1 in 8 women will probably get diagnosed. So this is a serious condition. And COVID is our current crisis right now, but I want to point out that over 200,000 women a year in the United States alone are getting diagnosed with breast cancer, and 40,000 women a year are still dying, despite all the progress that we are making. So there's more to do, and we must move forward as urgently as we are with things like COVID. So I think that's super important. I have to say I've honored to know Evelyn Lauder, and I've knew her from the very beginning. I was really very lucky to be one of the original researchers that they supported, and she was a force of nature and an incredible person. And with Larry Norton, they started the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, and that has supported, as you said, now almost 300 researchers to really push the field forward. Nishika is probably the beneficiary of all that fantastic research, because for certain kinds of aggressive cancers like she had, it is the treatments that are going forward that have made all the difference, especially in the kinds of the research around the HER2 oncogene. And I would say that there is an opportunity for everyone to be more aware and think about how to screen differently. One of the big studies we run is something called the Wisdom Study, which is women informed to screen depending on measures of risk. We now know that one size doesn't fit all. We know that breast cancer isn't one disease. And so we're trying to test the idea that screening and prevention should probably be tailored to your risk and who you are. And what's cool about this is a national study. Everyone in the United States can participate. If you live in Europe, you can be in the My Personalized Breast Cancer trial, which is a sister trial. And everyone out there knows someone between 40 and 70 who hasn't had breast cancer. Go to wisdomstudy.org and sign up, because unless all of us participate and help find out, what is the best way forward? How do we, evolve a system to figure out how to tailor our screening and prevention in a better way? And one of the fantastic things that companies can do, and we've had several companies like Salesforce, Qualcomm, and Genentech that actually are sponsors of the Wisdom Study, and they help support their employees to participate and to cover the cost of the new genetic testing that we've added, which is, we think, a critical part of understanding risk. So there are things that everybody can do to really support this program. And I would say, despite COVID, what we know is if you wear a mask and you do social distancing, your risk of getting COVID is actually extremely low. If you go to a center that has, if you go to a center that's following the right safety practices and you yourself follow those safety practices, the benefits of screening and, importantly, the benefits of treatment, dramatically outweigh any risk of COVID. And it's important for us to know that there are other things, there are other health concerns that people need to take care of and pay attention to.
And thank you for dispelling the myths that are out there, that it's just as important to get breast cancer screening now more than ever. And I think that's very helpful and clarifying.
And now more than ever, it's important to know how often screening, right? Should it be every year?
We have real information from a scientific expert, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I want to talk a little bit more about the broader ecosystem and the care spectrum. And we all know that those who have taken care of our loved ones with breast cancer, there's a lot more going on, and it's complex and it's arduous, and especially in the United States and many of the developing countries, that it's complex. And there's no one right size fit all, as you said. And so I'd like to turn the conversation to Shauna Emerson O'Neill and just cast a light on her perspective as a primary care provider of someone, her mother, for whom she cared for, who had breast cancer. So, Shauna?
Well, we are very fortunate at TD Bank to do a lot of work commercially with Wipro as a partner. So I support the part of TD Bank that runs technology and innovation, and we do all sorts of wonderful work with Wipro to support our business of banking. But today, I think, is a wonderful opportunity of how those partnerships can grow in different directions to do something back for the community. So I'm so very appreciative of Wipro's partnership to introduce me to this conversation, to meet with Michael and the Estee Lauder team. And I think the work that these organizations are doing to shine a light on this topic are just tremendously important. I did have, the privilege and opportunity to take care of my mother, who was diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 63. So she was diagnosed out of the gate with stage 3 cancer. And she had been in, pristine health her whole life, had done, self-checks. She had always taken, very good care of herself and taken a lot of the precautions that Dr. Esserman is speaking about. So it was a bit of a shock to us that it was so advanced when we found out. And for the next 2 years, essentially, I had the journey of trying my very best, to be there by her side and help her through the process, which I think in so many ways changed her life and the lives of those around her in some pretty unimaginable ways. So I think I can only give this group today a glimpse of kind of what to her. But I think it really underscores, Ashita's wonderful sort of survivor story of why it matters and so how important all of this work is to us. I think equally for the women and men who have not been as fortunate to kind of get through it in the same way, it really does underscore why this work matters and why the education matters so much.
So can you tell me a little bit more about your experiences with your mother and some of the challenges that you're met with as a primary care provider?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'll give you just a little bit of my experience, and then I would love Gail just to kind of share a little bit of, what I saw her going through. For me personally, I was a mother of 2 young children. I had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. I was pregnant with my third. I lived on the opposite side of the country from my mom and dad as an only child. So I'm in Canada here. So I lived in Toronto and they were in Edmonton, Alberta. So essentially, once she was diagnosed, she had a double mastectomy. She had the surgery, but had to go through several rounds of quite intensive chemo. My mom was a very tiny woman, and the chemo was very, very hard on her. She was very sick. So I arranged my schedule such that I would always be there to take her to her treatments and then to care for her after, because she was quite sick from it. So literally was flying back and forth across the country, trying to, I was a young executive in those days, so trying to kind of manage work, the kids, and really being there for her and my dad as best as I could to take through the process. So that was, sort of my job in it. I think from her perspective, I think the things that probably are less well known in terms of, just how difficult it is for the patient going through this. And I think too, as she does good examples, there are the obvious things that we all know about, like the physical changes, women lose their hair, they lose their strength, they lose weight. But I don't think we talk a lot about how sort of they lose their dignity. My mom was born in 1943. She was sort of a very, very proud woman. She was a beautiful woman. She took sort of so much pride in sort of her physical appearance, and she was just a sort of a pillar of resilience. And I think, for her to go from being that source of strength to her family, and, throughout the 2-year battle that she had, every day feeling like she was losing her ability to have that strength and play that role, as the center of our family. For her, I could just see that was killing her. And sort of for me to try to provide that strength to her, to let her know it was okay, that it wasn't her job to keep doing that. It was our job to help her through it. I think that is the emotional part on top of the physical part that, unless you've kind of either personally been through the experience or, experienced with a loved one, it's really, really hard to understand just how challenging that is for the family and the individual.
And so if you had, let's assume that there are a number of listeners online now who are actually decision makers in large healthcare organizations or even small ones. What are some of the things that you wish you would have had to support you as you were taking care of your mother?
No, it's a great question, Gail. I think, from a corporate perspective, as I think about, all the wonderful initiatives that organizations like Estee Lauder and Wipro are doing, I think just companies being aware that we've got all sorts of policies around, leave for our people, to the extent that organizations can help employees who are, trying to play that caregiver role and in providing some, deliberate and explicit programs to help with that. I think that is one humongous area of opportunity. I think from a healthcare perspective, and I know, being in Canada, my experience might have been a little bit different, certainly than the US system, but consistently, as I've talked to others who have been through this example, I do think some care sort of in hospital and palliative settings for families trying to play that caregiving role, just to be advocates for the individuals and the patients. Small things like mom at the very end, she was filling up with fluid from the cancer, and she would have to get her lungs drained probably every 3 days. And there were nights that if I went home to sleep, I was just worried sometimes that there wasn't somebody there with her 24/7. So I think in sort of certain periods of acute care, having resources that are actually able to be with the families and helping in those intense times would be tremendously helpful.
Dr. Esterman, you want to say something? I can see.
Yes, thank you so much. It is, the points you make are so very important. And on our side, from taking care of patients, we know that all these things make a difference. And I just wanted to make maybe 2 or 3 points. And one is, I think these experiences remind us, especially early on, one of the things that research is enabling us to do is to drive drug development to an earlier stage where we can try and figure out how to find those right size the treatments when people are first diagnosed to prevent metastatic disease. That's perhaps our best strength. And the starting with systemic therapy first is leading the way. So we give the right amount, find the right drugs, and give the right amount of chemotherapy. And these clinical studies are really paving the way to allow us to learn. So I think another really important thing to spread, or the message to spread, is clinical studies are tomorrow's treatments today. Now, not all of them work, but if we don't keep pushing forward, we won't see a different result. We can't do the same thing over and over again and expect something different. You know that from your business. That's true in clinical care and clinical research. So look for clinical studies. Your organization should promote the idea of going to places that have clinical trials available to people. I think another important thing is trials and new treatments are not just about treatments. They're about supportive care, like cold caps and ways to, there's things that can freeze your scalp, not terribly pleasant, but they can keep you from losing your hair. Now, some of these that are on the market are very expensive, but one of my fellow Stanford Business School friends actually was a breast cancer patient herself, was furious at how challenging it was to get these devices, and happened to be a device developer, and has developed this very cool device that will innovate and make things better. And as you know, being able to keep your hair is a huge issue for people's dignity. And if it matters to patients, it should matter to us. And finally, and trials, again, help make those things possible. And we need to pay attention to all those little things that make a difference to people. And I think the last thing is support. And I think now more than ever in the time of COVID, this is so important. Can you imagine getting cancer and not being able to leave your house, or be able to be with friends, or have people come in? You've got that complication on top of things. I think it is absolutely essential to find safe ways to have that kind of connection through Zoom, through social distancing and wearing of masks, and being present, and allowing, nobody should go to a doctor's visit by themselves and have to make decisions by themselves. And if they can't have someone come in with them, they can join through technology, right? Through video, through Zoom. That can be through the office, or you can do it at home. That's one of the amazing things. 2% of visits were telemedicine before COVID. Now, like 80% are. It's amazing. Overnight, this change. Technologies that should have made things easier are now available. Don't feel like you have to be alone. Don't make it so you can't see someone. Find ways to have socially distanced interaction. The isolation that people feel around this time is crippling. And so this is one of the things that everyone can do. Find Zoom calls, get your colleagues. If you know someone who's diagnosed amongst your colleagues, get a Zoom call together, send things to their door, have a virtual happy hour, do something. These things, those are tech things that you can do. I know all you guys know how to do all that.
Yes. So, Mike, given that you're a CIO of a multinational corporation, I don't know if it gives you the itches or it makes you nervous, because having in the area of, particularly in the medical field, right? The whole IT resource intensive is really scary. It's daunting, right? And so, how do you speak to that? How do you get corporations to say, no, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to provide for our employees and for families? Because Dr. Estee and I are exactly that. We push for this. We push for that connectivity, and we're on the provider side. So we it's like magic for us in the background. We hope that it just happens. So how do you speak to that, knowing it is, we're not going to make light of it. It is a resource intensive, but it's necessary.
It is resource intensive, but we do live in a time, a day and an age where we have a tremendous amount of technology available to us, right? Whether it's the simple things like you're talking about to conduct telemedicine, to very advanced artificial intelligence and analytics that can let us start to really drive personalized medicine. And the point that was made earlier, it's not one size fits all. And the more we learn about this and using data and using real life experiences and building that into trials, the more we're going to be able to advance the fight against this. So it's
and technology is actually making big strides. The screening study that I talked about, the Wisdom study, is all online. It's actually on the Salesforce platform. You can actually go in and everything is done en route. If you are in the personalized arm, your genetic test is sent to you at your door. I mean, everything is done online, I think, which is really great.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. And when we start thinking about the fact that most of the late stage, well, I won't say that, a large percentage of late stage detection is in developing parts of the world, right? And when we start to think about how technology can help us reach even further into places that may or may not have same standard of healthcare that we experience sometimes here, it's quite an opportunity to make a difference.
Well, and also to think about what are the kinds of, so one of the things that we've learned is not everyone's at risk for the same kind of cancer. And some of the fast growing cancers, it's not someone's fault that it's detected late. They didn't go in late. They're just a fast growing cancer. That's different. Screening fixes some problems, but not all. But specific and targeted treatments fix some of the others. So knowing this and understanding how to right-size treatments and making sure when developing countries develop their programs, they can skip some of the things that we have labored over and realize, okay, that wasn't the right alley. Now I have targeted therapies for this kind of tumor, and right, and you screening, and if your population that's getting it is young, that may not be screening. Maybe that's through genetic testing or some other ways of identifying who's at risk. Mm-hmm. That's, we must be thinking about the future and meeting it where it is and trying to bring all these advances in, and technology is actually helping us analyze data so much faster and so much better. Now we need to develop the systems to apply it to every patient.
Right.
And and everybody can participate. There's something that everyone can participate in, and the companies can help support that. It's really fantastic. So if anybody's interested, please email me.
Well, so what kinds of things do you see, both of you and all of you actually? What kinds of technology do you see that's on the rise? Some rising stars, or some different approaches to either breast cancer early screening or detection or treatment, or even identifying markers of cancer that would otherwise have been found? What kinds of things are you seeing out there?
Well, I think there's the new ways of the new classifiers for how to determine who's got what kind of tumor, to figure out how to right size your treatment. There's so much change in that. Sort of one of the trials we run, the I-SPY trial, we've learned a lot about that. There's new techniques to personalize your circulating DNA to help us tell who needs what. There's new imaging techniques that I think are coming forward. And I think one of the reasons why I think it's so important to rethink how we approach screening is, again, if we know someone's really at risk for this kind of faster growing tumor, we might want to screen more frequently, or we might want to screen with fast MR or diffusion weighted imaging or some other IV contrast memo, or things that might be appropriate for people where standard screening wouldn't work.
You folks have been the seminal, basically the archangel of breast cancer detection and screening from a corporate perspective, and really, I would call it corporate social responsibility. Let's just put it right out there, and specifically for women. How does it feel, and what is the enormity of that responsibility in terms of what you can do to propel organizations who are really just struggling? Again, with the pandemic, a lot of people are now trying to rethink how to do business, right? So a lot of people are thinking about their business in and of itself. How do you mesh it all?
Well, the idea of giving back to our communities and social good is deep in our DNA, and as a company, and I think it's probably never been witnessed more than it was during these times of COVID. Like most retailers, we were, our brick and mortar was shut down around the world. And, it's easy to do social good when you're, and to give back when your revenue is going up and your profits are going up. But when things are tough, that's when we double down and through our individual brands and the Estee Lauder Companies Corporation, we gave millions of dollars to the British Red Cross, to foundations all across the world, the British Red Cross, the Red Cross in China, the charities in Korea, New York City COVID Relief Fund. We created an employee cares relief fund for our own employees who might be facing financial challenges. And so, it's in tough times that you find out what a company stands for, and really what they're going to do. And I couldn't be more proud of being inside, part of this company and part of the Estee Lauder Companies. And as I mentioned earlier, this has really become, of all the things we do, this has become our largest philanthropic effort.
How do you get providers, and with now, hopefully with the advent of telemedicine being the norm, how do you get providers to say, I want to try this. I want to take on this new technology. I want to try these new treatments. What's your message to them? Well, it's scary, right? It's scary.
It's not. It's not scary when you stop and think about what we're doing. What we're doing isn't good enough. When our treatments don't have toxicity and they work 100% of the time, then we shouldn't change what we're doing. But last I checked, that's not the situation. And you're not going to make it any better if you just keep doing the same thing over and over again. Now, a trial or a new study isn't for everybody. But for someone who's got risk, look for these studies. What are the great things that can happen now with telemedicine? The access has completely changed. It's fantastic. Some of the COVID studies we're doing, we're actually being able to have supervising sites go into smaller sites and make trials and new therapies more accessible more quickly. These are fantastic changes that we need to keep after the COVID pandemic goes away. That's the silver lining. But the great thing is, everyone needs to know a diagnosis of cancer is not an emergency. It's an emergency because you know about it. Take the time to learn about what you have, get second opinions, find out, learn about the landscape, talk to your friends, find out what else you can do and what's available for you in terms of studies. This isn't worse care. It's the potential for better care and more support. And you don't have to do it, but you owe it to yourself to find out. If you're young, you can take the time, if you need chemotherapy, to harvest eggs and preserve your fertility. There's lots of things, if you've got a situation where someone's sick, you have the time. It's not, it's all about how you respond to therapy if you have a bad cancer. And if you really have a low risk cancer, it's not urgent that you do something the next week. So you have time. Time is your friend. Get resources, learn,
Thank you.
talk to other people, and get an opinion.
Super. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Shauna, would you like to say something? We're about to wrap up on this panel, but I know you have some thoughts. I can see you would like to share something.
No, thank you. I mean, I'm just so inspired by all of the wonderful work we've talked about today. And, I did hesitate. My mom was such a private woman. I thought hard about, would she want her story being told here with all of these people? And really where I landed was, if it could just change, I think, Michael, you said it earlier, even if it could help one family. So, one daughter from losing a mother, one grandchild from losing a grandmother. I think the hardest part of our story that I didn't tell earlier is that I actually, as I mentioned, I was pregnant with our third child. And at the very end, the airlines wouldn't let me fly anymore. They said, you're far too pregnant to be on an airplane. So I went home to get induced. To have my son now, and so that we could go be with her when she left us. And literally, I was at the hospital getting induced. I got a call from my dad, and as soon as I told him that Ronan had been born safely and had arrived wonderfully, about 3 hours later, she finally closed her eyes and left us because she knew he was here safely. And, the strength of her, sort of fight to stay. I know the only reason she had stayed that long was to know he had been okay. And I just think about, if there's anything that she would want for others is to sort of not have others go through the suffering and the loss and what she sort of didn't get the chance to enjoy. So I so applaud the work that's being done by Dr. Esserman. Right. I so applaud the work that's being done by Estee Lauder, partnerships like Wipro, anything that we can do to have families have Ashita's outcome as opposed to what, our family did. That's really what we have to hope for, where there's a day in the future where through all of this democratized access to trials and clinical advancements and technology, that we could look forward to a day without breast cancer for all of us. And wouldn't that be an amazing day to find?
That would be an amazing day. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And so with that, just one more comment. And Mike, you were very helpful and instrumental in actually providing the Estee Lauder hackathon, and it's now open. And it'll be open for another week, I believe. And so we encourage all the people who have, the creative folks and to really participate in this opportunity. And we will continue to champion and fight the cause so that no one will ever die of breast cancer again. And so with that, I'd like to really thank all my esteemed panel. You're wonderful for all your inputs. And thank you again to Estee Lauder and Wipro for this wonderful Tech Day in Pink.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
for organizing it.
Mm-hmm.